I think it's time to have a serious discussion on the current state of the sports card market and why it's been trending down. What's going on, guys? Matt here, back again with another video. Before we start, smash the like button and hit subscribe if you're enjoying the sports card content, and comment down below what your thoughts on the current state of the sport market are. So over the past month, we've seen sports cards as a whole trend down. Constantly on social media, I've been inundated with people worrying about a potential bubble bursting and that the market was crashing. As you guys know, one of my favorite quotes with investing is to be fearful when others are greedy and be greedy when others are fearful. And right now, I'm not going to say the majority of the hobby is fearful, but I'll say a huge chunk of them are. Now, I'm not going to be that person that tells you that it's buying time, but instead I'm going to go through what I think might be causing this downturn and also provide some optimism. I do think there's multiple components to this, and it's not just one black and white answer that dictates this. So first off, I think people are getting much smarter when it comes to their sports card investing. You've got a bunch of content creators such as myself who have popped up over the past period and provide information, and eventually this causes people to smarten up, and this causes some of the dumb money to not stick around. One example is the market cycle, which I mentioned in my 5 tips for new sports card collectors and investors video. In it, I essentially said that playoff cards go up around the playoffs due to their increased hype and excitement, but surprisingly, we also see the eventual championship winners cards drop off even after they win. We've seen this now with LeBron and the Lakers, Tom Brady and the Buccaneers, and Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. This is due to a couple of reasons. Number one, a player's cards will have their glory built into their price leading up to an event, so by the time they actually do win the award or the event, it actually can't go up much more. And secondly, people have started to realize this and time their selling to peak times. Everyone is then in a rush to sell their item, and we get an oversaturation of listings, which leads to reduced sales. With a lack of sales, people then lower their price as they're desperate to sell, and then this can cause a price drop in itself. I think we're starting to see this now with the playoffs. People have held their cards for months now. Now that they're all rushing to sell, there's a million listings being put up and not much buying going on. People are also less reactive to events and moments now, which is again a consequence of people getting smarter to the market. We saw Bol, Taylor Horton Tucker, and Kyle Guy explode at different times during the year last year because of big moments. But collectors and investors have realized that once a key moment happens, not to get sucked into the FOMO mentality and instead wait a little bit longer. I'm not sure if this is 100% correct, but I've noticed the cards that have been hit the most were base cards from the last couple of years, especially from Prism, where the print run was significantly higher. Most years were hit hard, but the 2019-20 draft class was definitely hit the hardest. So out of the 23 2019-20 rookies listed on Market Movers for their Prism-based PSA 10s, only 4 have gone up in the past 90 days, and I think you can identify why. They are Kevin Porter Jr., Nickeil Alexander-Walker, RJ Barrett, and Jordan Poole. Now, each player has far exceeded their expectations this season, but they weren't the only ones. Zion is another name you'll notice here, and even with his maiden All-Star appearance, his Prism PSA 10 was down. These have a rising pop count with tens of thousands of these cards at PSA waiting to get graded, so I anticipate once they return, the flooding will cause the market to drop even more. I mentioned this in one of my earlier videos, but I think the 2019-20 Prism base set is a set that I probably wouldn't be holding long term. I'm fine with it in the short term, but you need to have an exit strategy with it. With the new people joining the hobby, they assume it's quite easy to make some money on it, and you see them buying up Prism-based PSA 10s, seeing their investment halve and then panic selling. It really only takes one bad experience for someone's opinion to change. And apologies for the lack of a better term, but people leaving the hobby causes the dumb money to leave. I have to out myself here because in one of my earlier videos, I did list Luka Doncic and more specifically his Prism rookie-based PSA 10 as a buy. I do give out a lot of tips, but I have to admit when I'm wrong and what I've learned. And that's essentially to not rely on the pop report as gospel, but do respect it regardless of who the player is. As a content creator, even though my audience isn't at a sports card investor level, I still have a role in giving out solid information. PSA ceasing their grading services has also done what I expected it to do, and that's essentially caused the impatient investors and collectors to sell raw. Again, with a massive flooding of raw cards into the market, you have people lowering their price to get a sale. This is actually a solid opportunity to get some grade-worthy cards, provided you understand that when PSA open up, the minimum cost might be $50 US to grade a card. I'd be looking at mid-tier cards that are numbered or short printed that can justify an increase in price with a solid grade. I think additionally we'll also see the end of people sending base cards to PSA to get graded. I was definitely part of the problem here, but last year you could send in a $5 card with a $25 grading fee and easily make money. I actually said in a video once it was the easiest way to make money on sports cards, provided you looked at condition beforehand. But again, with people starting to get a bit smarter, everyone started to look for grade-worthy cards and send them in, which essentially caused the backlog for PSA. I also saw people suggesting that with PSA closing, it actually might drive up the value of PSA slabs as there would be less being graded. But I've always partly disagreed with this because you've also got to think of the huge backlog at PSA and also think of the huge supply that's about to come in. And that's what we've seen. Along with a market correction, PSA slabs have been going for $10 to $15 for some rookies, as you guys might have seen in my mail days, and that's pretty much half the grading fee. And that's also not taking into account how much the actual card costs as well. The spread of money people have to allocate towards cards is also down. I can't speak for Americans, but in Australia, I do know when JobKeeper was around, this did fund a lot of people's money for cards. Now that it's gone, people don't have as much disposable income, but also people are rushing to buy the next hottest thing, and this takes money out of the hobby. I think it's actually quite easy to gauge what the hottest thing right now is just by looking at your mates who have zero association to it and see what they say. An example of this was late last year when the card market was super hot, and a lot of messages were coming through to me asking about sports cards. Then moved to earlier this year, and a lot of my mates were starting to speak about NFTs. And now the big thing that everyone's been speaking about is the crypto market. I've even seen people selling their cards urgently to fund their crypto investments for the dip. People chasing the next thing to make a buck takes the money and attention out of it. We also have to highlight how quickly the hobby grew, and we also had a unique set of circumstances that we're still trying to get over. Everyone was stuck at home and on their computer, and a lot of time was spent devoted towards sports cards. This, in combination to the NBA lockout, led to unsustainable growth for nearly every modern sports card. The most popular modern sports card, which I've highlighted already, the Luka Doncic Prism PSA 10, is a perfect example of this. As we can see, it has gone up over time, but around August last year, there was this ridiculous spike where the card more than doubled. A rising pop count has led to this card's downfall, and we've seen the supply now exceed the demand. We have to take a few lessons from this market dip, and that's number one, buy what you can afford and not to buy into debt. Number two, look at the pop report, especially for the later years, and stick to numbered parallels or short printed cards. And lastly, number three, continue to research and don't follow blindly to any content creators, and that's including myself. There's a lot of new sports card content creators and influencers these days, so you have to decipher who's giving you solid information and who's trying to deceive you for their own gain. Whilst I've given out doom and gloom, I do have to admit how optimistic I am for the sports card hobby still. We're at a time in sports where there's so much happening. We're currently in the NBA and the NHL playoffs. We also got the Euros tournament about to happen, and then we also have the Olympic Games after that. After the Olympics, the NFL season starts, and the sporting cycle returns again. You've also got to remember, viewership is also at an all-time low, and fan interaction is also low, which leads to a downfall in sports cards. Even if this all comes down, I do have to say how grateful I am for the hobby because it came in a tough time for the world. I'll be grateful for the opportunity to do what I've always wanted to do since I was a little kid, and that's to collect sports cards and create a YouTube channel. I hope you guys take a step back and reflect on those things as well. But that's it for my thoughts on the current state of the sports card market. Let me know down below what you guys think. Smash the like button and hit subscribe if you're enjoying the sports card content, and I'll see you guys in future videos. Take care.